today. So for the most part, some tutors have started using Google Classroom, but it's not extremely widespread. So we're going to start with just all the basic features, and then we'll move on to a couple of specific use cases for those of you who are teaching citizenship or HSE. We have a template set up, and we'll get to that a little bit later. So the way this is going to work is, I'll actually start sharing my screen now. I have my screen is cut in half here. The left side is going to be what I will work with the most. It's going to be sort of how a teacher would use Google Classroom, but the right side is going to be how your students would see what you're doing. And so I'll move back and forth so you guys can kind of get both perspectives and understand how this really works. I will pause every time I go through like a section to take questions. At that point, feel free to unmute and ask them. And if anything comes to you in between there, you can stick it in the chat like we said earlier. And with that in mind, I'm going to get started. So the first step to Google Classroom would be to create it. And so basically a Google Classroom is sort of like a virtual classroom is not a bad analogy. It's a platform where you can share material and content with your students. But what it's important to remember is it doesn't replace Zoom. It's not like a video meeting platform. It's just to share content with each other. So if you want to give a handout or post an assignment or something like that, and we'll go through all of those options, of course. So the first step would be to sign into your Google account and to go to classroom.google.com. And then you're going to want to press this plus button here to create a class. And agree to that. And you want to give your class a name. So it's important to know that this name will be the same name your students see. So what's useful for you might not always be useful for them. So try to find like a good name. So you might say citizenship class 2021. Maybe if you're teaching more than one class, you put in which one it is here. Maybe if you like the Mondays class or something like that. These are other information that you can provide. They'll show up under the name of the class when the students are looking at it, but it's not particularly useful either. So it's going to take a minute, but once it's created, this is what a Google Classroom looks like. You know, I'm actually going to make this big for now. So this is the homepage of a Google Classroom. There are 4 tabs at the top here: Stream, Classwork, People, and Grades. We're going to work mostly with the first 2 because the last 2 are pretty specific. So the stream is the homepage of the classroom. It's sort of like a rolling timeline of everything that has been posted to the classroom. If you ever make an announcement or an assignment or share something, your students will see it here in chronological order with the most recent on top. Classwork is a more organized version of the stream that only shows certain types of material and shows them, instead of chronologically, it shows them by topic. People is where you see a list of all of your students and also any other co-teachers you might have. And of course, grades is where if you were grading your students, you would see a summary of that. Now, I know most people in Literacy NJ aren't too worried about grading their students, so we're going to be brief when we talk about grades, but I will mention it. I'll take any questions you guys have now before I get into how to add your students to this.
So do we use this in addition to Zoom or instead of Zoom?
It would be in addition. You can't do a video chat or any sort of live teaching through Google Classroom. Some tutors are using it in addition in order to collect homework from their students or to give their students different study materials, things like that.
So I go up on Zoom, and then how do I bring Google Classroom into the conversation?
It will be, it'll be different for all tutors, but for the most part, it's like, okay, we're going to be going over this slideshow today. If you want to look at it yourself, you can see it on the Google Classroom and you'll post it there. or if you are going to collect homework from your students, they can send it to you through Google Classroom. And we'll get into the details of how all of that works. This might make more sense as we go on.
Okay, thank you.
So first things first is you're going to want to invite your students to your classroom so that they can be with you. There's a nice little invite button here, and if that's not here, you want to click this plus button to invite students. And this is how I recommend doing it because most of you guys have already been interacting with the students and you don't have very large classes. So this just allows you to type in all of their email addresses one by one and invite them directly to the Google Classroom. So I'm just inviting this person here. You guys can invite all of your students by just typing in their names and clicking on it, assuming you've emailed them before. This pulls from your Gmail contacts. If you haven't already, if you don't want to type in all of their email addresses or names, you can send them this link in a normal email, or maybe in a Zoom meeting, you put it in the chat and they can all click on this link, and that will have them join the classroom as well. In order to join a Google Classroom, your students will need their own Google accounts. So make sure that they are able to do that. Google Classroom does have a mobile app and does work well on phones. I know some students only have access to like phones or tablets. I'm not going to be going over how that looks today, but it's pretty similar. And in the future, I might be holding a webinar to talk about Google Classroom on phones specifically. So once you've, what I'm going to do actually right now is I'm going to take this link. I'm going to join this Google Classroom as a student, so you guys can see how it would look for your students. So I'm switched right now. I'm joining as a student. Oh no, I'm not. Okay, so what I'm going to have to do is there is one more way to join a Google Classroom. Is you can just give your students this code. If they're already familiar with Google Classroom, this will be the easiest for them because they already have their accounts. And so now as a student, if they want to join, they just click join and they can just type in the code. So when your students,
I'm sorry, where did that code, where did you get that code?
yes. So as a teacher and you sign into the classroom, you'll see it right under the name. It says class code. It's right here. And if you would just want to make it big, you click this little square symbol. So I just want to point out that when a student joins your classroom, this is what they see. It is identical, and they will see all of the information in approximately the same way you do.
Sid, can that class code be used on any type of account, whether it's Gmail or another?
They're gonna have to have a Gmail account in order to sign into Classroom. Yeah, they're gonna need a Google account to sign into Classroom. Yes, and it also, yeah, don't want to talk over myself. They're gonna need a Google account to sign into Classroom, and in order to come back to it, the code will work for anyone who already has one. So will the link that I showed you earlier, and so will typing in their emails manual. There's lots of different ways to invite them. I recommend using this link or typing in their emails manually. I just use the code right now because it's easier for my current setup. So now here's the most important part is actually posting things to this classroom so your students can see them. So the way you want to do that is you want to go to the classwork tab and you want to press create. This gives you lots of options for what you can create to work with your students. You can give them assignments, you can give them quizzes, you can ask them questions, post material. And this is sort of to redo one of these that you've already done. So I'm going to start with posting material. So material is just when you want to provide like a document to your students or a link or provide anything to them that you don't want them to be turning in work for. So it's not a homework assignment, but it's anything else basically. So say I'm working with a slideshow today and I want my students to have access to that slideshow, or maybe a reference to a website in class and I want them to be able to see it. I would give the post a title and I'd say, website from class today. I can give it more of a description if I like. Maybe please review this when you get a chance, or whatever I want to type here. And then this is the part where you actually add the website. So say it's a link. Just gonna put in a fake link for now. Or if you have any files on your computer, maybe you've used a PDF or a Word document in class today, you can upload that. You can upload any files directly from your computer, just as you would upload files anywhere else. You can upload YouTube links. If you guys are using Google Drive and you have any files in your Google Drive, you can go ahead and add those directly too. If you're not familiar with Google Drive, that's okay. But I've got a bunch of literacy and J stuff in my Google Drive. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. If you guys are really familiar with Google Drive and Google Docs, you can also create documents directly in here and then send them to your students, but that isn't what you would normally be doing. Here you have a few options that you're probably not going to use very often, but you can choose. If you're teaching more than one class, you can choose to post this to more than one class at the same time. So these are all the other classes that I'm a teacher in. And you can even pick which students you'd like to send it to if you only want to send it to certain students. But for the most part, you're going to leave these as the default, the class you're currently in, and all of the students. When you post it, it will show up here under classwork. This icon means that it's a material, and it will also show up immediately in the stream. So I'm going to switch over. This is how your students will see it. They'll see, if they're on it right now, they'll see that the stream is updated. And then they'll see, okay, Sid, the teacher, posted this new material. This is the title of the material. And this is what they see for the full screen view of the material. They see your description, your title, and they can click on everything you posted. So I sent them this link, and I sent them this slideshow as well. Any questions so far?
How did you upload the link?
Okay, so what I did was when I am posting, this is the view when I'm posting, I hit add and then I hit link, and that lets you either type in or copy paste the link. Feel free to unmute if anyone else, if you have any questions, just go ahead and ask them.
Sid, do we need to be taking notes with these instructions, or are you going to be including them in a handout later on?
I have not finished making my handout, but I can send it out to you in a little bit. I believe on that Hoover app, it'll be under my presentation.
Okay.
Can I ask you something too?
Yes.
I have a case where I have like some classes from, let's say, back last September, and I had attachments in my, for my topics for my weekly classes.
Yes.
And like the attachments have just disappeared.
They've disappeared.
Well, they're there, but it says I can't access them. And I just can't, I mean, I should probably Google it to figure it out, but it says, unable to access document, please make sure you are connected to the internet. Well, I am connected to the internet. I just don't, I mean.
Well, that does seem like some sort of connection issue.
Okay, so it's not a question that the documents aren't there. For some reason, there's not a connection. There's a problem with something.
For the most part, when the documents aren't there, it says something a little bit different. It says something like ask for access, or like take it out of your trash, or something like that. I've never seen it say check your internet when the documents aren't there.
Okay, I'll look
it,
into it.
It is possible. If you want, you can email me later and I can try to help you with it.
Oh, that would be beautiful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Sid, I'm trying to do this in parallel with you, and I created and did everything you did. I noticed you had an automatic announcement to your class, which I don't have right now, because mine says announce something to your class. Is that something you're going to tell us? Because you must have it set up so it automatically tells them.
It didn't. Okay, so where it says announce something to your class here, actually, that's what I was going to go over next anyway.
Okay.
This is if you were to post an announcement, not so posting. Okay, when I go to classwork and I hit create material, that's one type of post that is, it puts it in the classwork tab and it's like a permanent material for people to go back to. when I post an announcement here, it's supposed to be more of like a temporary, like a right now, like literally like an announcement. It's almost equivalent to just sending them an email with a body of text. So if I announce
But-
something right now, I say, hey, reminder that we have class.
That's different, but you have at the bottom, your file is showing. See the part in yellow, that part is not
Yes.
showing when I do it.
It's not, did you post it when you were when you were editing this? Did you hit this post button up here?
No, probably not. Okay, that's
Okay.
why, because that's why we need to go through each step. Okay,
Yes,
Okay.
I can, I'm gonna go back over that actually. Let's
yeah,
double check. So when you're posting material, you gotta be on the classwork tab. You have to hit create and then click material. Once you give it a title and a description, as we described earlier, you can upload whatever files or link that you want to share with your students here. And then you have to make sure to press this post button in the top right. That will put it into the stream so all your students can see. If you press this X, it will save as a draft, but you'll have to go in later and hit press post. So that's actually a segue into the next thing I was going to talk
I
about is
see.
if you want to create material in advance, a lot of people are telling me that, you know, they have a lot of things they want to put up in advance, but they also don't want their students to feel overwhelmed. You can create everything, but then if you don't press the post button here and you just hit save draft, it's like saving a draft in your email program. It creates everything, but it doesn't actually send it out yet. And so whenever you want to send it out, you go back to classwork, you find it, it's in gray because it's a draft. You press edit, and then you press post. And that will then put it out into the stream. Now, another thing that does happen sometimes is there's an option to make it so that things that you make in the classwork tab don't show up in the stream, and they're only in the classwork tab. So that would be a setting for your classroom. You just press the settings gear in the top right corner, and you want to scroll down to classwork on the stream. The default is show condensed notifications, which is what I recommend. It just shows that yellow bar that says that, you know, the teacher has posted this, click on it and they can see the full details. But if this is set to hide notifications, notice how it's not in the stream anymore. There's two materials I just made. You don't see them here, but they're still in the classwork tab. They just aren't showing up in the stream of the chronological stream. That is, it's a little complicated. I understand. I'd recommend not changing that. The default is great, but if that is changed, that could be another reason why it's not showing up in your stream.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm just much slower than you are, to be honest.
okay.
And I just don't see even where you post. Could you just do that slowly with your cursor?
Yes. So 1 second. I will. Let's see. This works. Maybe. So if you are here
Mhm.
on your classroom homepage, you want to click on the classwork button up here.
Mhm.
And then you want to press create. So this will give you a bunch of options for what you would like to create. So far, we've only talked about creating material, which is where you just give content to your students and there's no like work back and forth. You need to give it a title. You don't have to give it a description. So say I give it a generic title. And then I click here. I use these two buttons, primarily this first button, add, to add any content that I want. So if I want to give them a link, I can give them the link, copy paste in the link. I'm just going to give a dummy link for now. Or if I want to give them a file, say I'm working with a Word document, I can give them a Word document from my computer by pressing add file, add and then file, and then browse to go through my actual computer. And then say I want to give them the essay I wrote. That'll be uploaded here and you'll see everything that you're about to post to your students. And then in order to actually send it to your students, you have to press this post button in the upper right corner. Does that make sense?
I'll work on it. Being
All right.
honest. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Okay, that's all right. I'm going to keep going through more examples of this just in slightly different forms. So that might help you get a better idea of the process. But are there any other
So-
questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Go on.
Sid, so when we're assigning things, it's just there and it doesn't get sent out to anyone until we hit the post. Is that
Exactly.
accurate?
Exactly. When you press the post button, it will show up in the stream. It will show up for your students here. And if they have like the mobile app, it'll send them a notification. It'll even send them an email if they have that on. So as an example, actually, if you were to make something and then not press the post button and just close out of it, or if you were to click save as a draft, it'll say draft here and it'll say that here, these say that it was posted at this time. This one says that it's just a draft, it was not posted, and it's gray. And more importantly, when you're a student, the students will never see it. They only see the things that have already been posted. They don't see the assignment that says it's a draft. So now I'm working as a student right now, and I see the first one, the second one, the third one that we did, as well as the announcement, but I don't see the fourth one that we did.
Okay, so things can be scheduled and they can be in draft, which the students won't see.
They
Is
won't
that
see.
accurate?
Yes, it's just like writing a draft to an email before sending it
Okay.
out. Exactly.
Thank you.
And you can also schedule assignments, which I haven't seen so many tutors in literacy NJ use, but a lot of classroom teachers like to use this so that things only go up at the start of the class period. You press this drop down and then you press schedule, and this lets you pick a date and time, and then it'll automatically post it only at that date and time. It's worth noting that it's often about 5 minutes late. I don't know why it is. But yeah, so you can, if you don't want to post it right now, but you know exactly when you want your students to see it, you can give it a date and a time, and it will go up at that date and time, just as if you were to hit post.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I'll do that right now just so we can see it later on. We'll say Monday at 8 a.m. It's fine. All right. Oh, actually, now you can see that it's a draft and it says that it is scheduled for this date. So it's pretty explicit on your homepage here. So the other type of post is an assignment. And this is for if you are assigning work to your students and you want them to give you back their work. Now, this one is a little more complicated, so we're going to start with the basics. I'll take questions and then we'll go into more about how to actually collect that work and grade it. So let's say this is assignment for today, and the instructions for the students are write 10 sentences. Say that pretty simple assignment. Your students have to write 10 sentences. This is just an example, of course. And this still allows you to add any material, just like you did with the material post. So you can press add and add any reference material you want for your students. If you want them to be referencing PDF or an example document, or you want them to look at the link and to write down what they thought about the link or thought about a video or anything like that, you can post any sort of material. So as an example, I'm going to post, let's see, what do I have here? I'm going to post a copy of 1984. And I'm going to, maybe the 10th letter is supposed to be about the book. I also get these 3 options here. You get these options when you're using a Google Drive file. And so for the most part, you're going to want to say students can view the file. That means that they can look at it as reference. If you want students to edit the file, this means that all of your students will be able to edit that file. It makes less sense if it's a PDF, but say it's a Word document or a Google document, and students can edit it. They will all be working on the same document. They'll all be able to see each other's work and something like that. It's sort of like a group editing document. That's one option. And the last option is to make a copy for each student. So this will give each student their own personal copy of this document that they can edit and then send back to you with their edits. So like I said, this also isn't very useful if you're sending a PDF out, but if you're using a Google document, and we'll do an example of this in a little bit, say it's maybe a template and you want your students to fill out the template, or like a worksheet and you want students to fill out the worksheet, you would just use this third option. Excuse me. When you're posting an assignment, you have these options here. The same, you could choose the class, choose the students. Most of the time you're not touching this, but you can also choose the points. So this is if you're going to grade the assignment, how many points is it worth? How many points is it out of, for example, or you can leave it ungraded if you don't want to be grading the assignment. And this can be changed after you post it. So don't worry that, oh, I decided to grade it but it's ungraded. You're not stuck. You can always change it. Of course, because it is an assignment where your students are turning in work, you can also set a due date. Say I want them to finish this by next Friday. I can even set a time. The default will be 11:59 p.m. So like the last minute that it's still Friday. Here you'll see the word assign instead of the word post, but it does the same thing. It just shows up to all your students and it says that your teacher has made this assignment. You can still save it as a draft. You can still schedule it like before, but we're going to go ahead and assign it. So once I've posted this assignment, to me, it looks about the same, but on a student's end, assignments look very different. So now I'm a student again, and I'm going to refresh so I can see it. So I'll see that my teacher has posted this new assignment here. And when I click on it, the view is very different. I see the title and I see the instructions as well as any material that the teacher's provided. But now here on the right, I have my work. So this allows me to add any work that I want to give to my teacher. So if I have a Word document that I want to send back to the teacher, I can choose to upload that now. So, or if I want to create a Google document. Not sure how many of you guys are familiar with Google documents, but they are basically Word documents, but Google's version of it, and they're all cloud-based. They work really well with Google Classroom. It's sort of all integrated. So if you are familiar with it, you'll find this really useful. And if you aren't, I'd recommend trying to learn it if you're going to get familiar with Google Classrooms, because it's quite useful. So if I go ahead and hit create a Google document, I'm a student, just as a reminder, and I can go ahead and type in my 10 sentences that my teacher asked for, et cetera, et cetera. And then once I'm done working with it, on Google Classroom, I can press turn in, and that will turn it into my teacher. They will now be able to, they'll get a notification that your student has completed your work, review it at your convenience. So going back to the teacher's view real quick, and then I'll take questions. I can see all my students' work here. So when I'm looking at my stream, or if I'm looking at the classwork tab, I can see the assignment that I just posted. If I click view, I can see student work. Student work is where you will see everything that your students have been working on and when they're turning it in. You'll see their status here. If they haven't turned it in, it'll say not turned in, or it'll say assigned or something like that. And if they have turned it in, it says turned in, and you can see the work that they have turned in as the teacher. You can, when you're done looking at it, you can hit return. You can communicate with them, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and you can even give it a grade. So I'll take questions now, and I will be going into more details, but start with questions.
I've got a question. It would seem that this is some technology that the students are going to have to learn how to use.
Yes.
So does Google Classroom, does it provide a tutorial to teach the students how to use it?
There are small tutorials when they first create their account, and there's plenty on YouTube, but Google itself doesn't provide a whole lot.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. When you're doing the creating for the student, when you assign it, whether the student can edit and whether
Yes.
the student gets a copy, can you go over that part? With the
Yes.
editing, is that one copy given to all of the students, or one like whiteboard copy that the students would be able to edit in a group?
It's sort of like what the second thing you said, and I'll show an example. It's a little bit difficult to show a true example because I don't have a lot of students, but if I were to send a document, we'll do that. We'll do that now actually, because I wanted to go over it anyway. So I'm going to switch to, I'm the teacher right now. And so I'm going to I'm just going to edit this current assignment. Oh, I'm sorry. Here it is. Edit. And so when I add and I'm going to do it with a Google Doc because that's the most simple way to show it. If I got this untitled document and I change it to students can edit, and let me actually put some content here. Let me say, now what will happen is if I switch over to being the student and I click on this untitled document, they can literally go in and edit everything about it. And all of your students will be able to edit the same document. So one student changes something, all students will see the change. It's like a shared, sort of like a shared whiteboard type thing.
Okay, does that file have to be a Google Doc for them to do that as opposed to a PDF?
Technically it would still work as a PDF. However, it's pretty difficult to make changes to PDF within Google Drive, if that makes sense. It has to be on your Google Drive and it has to be a Google Drive document. And so if it's not one of these and it is a PDF, they would need some other software to be like editing on the PDF. So if I don't even have one installed, but if I'm doing something, and I could theoretically, yes, it could be a PDF, but for the most part, it's mostly for Google Docs.
No problem with Microsoft Word docs, though. They can edit those okay, right?
I don't think so. I think they have to be, you'd have to convert that to a Google document to have that group editing.
Okay.
A question I have is when you upload documents, do they stay on your shared drive?
Yeah, they will be on your Google Drive and they will be in a place, I can show you. They will get automatically uploaded to your Google Drive and they will be in a folder called Classroom.
Right. That's what I think my problem lies. I've just figured it out. I don't know how to correct it, but I think that's where the situation is.
Okay. They will be in a folder called Classroom. And in this folder called Classroom, you can see all of your classes. Where's the one I created today? What do they call it? Citizenship Class 2021.
Yeah.
I don't see it.
Here, Citizenship 2020.
Is that it? I have a lot of these.
So
But
I was
that's
gonna
where
say, so
it automatically ends up there. Even that's where the documents lie essentially in the cloud.
Yes, it ends up here. And here it is. So
sort
citizenship
your
class
documents by last
2020.
modified for date.
Yes. And then you'll see, so this is the document that I created for everyone to access right here. And
Right.
it just pops into this folder and it's shared in a way that all teachers can edit and all students can edit is how it is set up right now. For this one, I had it so all teachers can edit and all students can view. So these are the teachers of my class and the students of my class can edit and view. So that was when I set this to students can view, that's how it did it behind the scenes in Google Drive for me. And it also makes these folders for all of your assignments with all of your students' work. So this is just your students' work and other students' work would also be here. It does all of this automatically, and for the most part, we don't need to go through it, but because we just access it directly from Classroom, but it is doing it behind the scenes and saving it in your Drive.
Okay, Sid, I'll talk with you offline. I asked that question because I have uploaded documents from my Google Drive and the students, and it has been set up so that the students get a copy. Do I have to put it in students can edit it? And I've done it both ways and somehow they still can't edit it. And that was
Well,
why.
if you want that to be editing on the same like shared document where they can all see each other's work and etc., you want it to be students can edit. And I'll show an example of students can get a copy, because that works slightly differently. And yeah, we could definitely talk later as well if you want to go in more depth or help with your specific situation. But I'm going to go into this assignment. I'm going to edit it, and I'm going to add another document. I'm just going to create another Google document because it is the easiest. And I'm going to say, okay, this is the worksheet, because the most common use case for this is a worksheet. So say we want fill in the blanks. Okay. Then on Classroom, I changed this one to students can edit. I want to make sure that's the. Oh my gosh, it went away. Okay, so I want to add a Google Drive. I want to add this worksheet that I just created. Now, if I make it so that, why can't I give them a copy? That's annoying. Oh, I can't do that. Post more than, okay. I apologize, guys. I messed this up a little bit. Okay,
Once
so when I'm
it's
going
it's
to,
assigned, it will not
yeah, once you've already assigned it, you can't make it so they get a copy, because that would have
modify.
to, yeah, because that would have to go in to
Yep.
their work and stuff, which it can't do. So we're gonna do a new assignment, and this is gonna be, instead of write 10 sentences, it's gonna be fill out the worksheet. And so I'm gonna add it here. Now I'm gonna say make a copy for each student. And what this will do is I'm gonna give it due next Thursday. I'm gonna keep this one graded so we can talk about grading in a little bit. And once I assign it, so now what happens is, for me, it looks about the same, but as a student, it is hugely different. So with the original one, when I had students could edit it, I went in and I deleted what the teacher wrote, and now no one can see that. And now I could go in and write my own stuff. I could be like, whatever, anything I want. It is kind of messy, but it's a shared space that anyone could change anything. But when in the new one where I have it so I get a copy, it's not even here. It's already here under my work. And so it's a personal copy with my name, and it says fill in the blanks. Hello, my name is. So I fill in the blank, and then I can go ahead and turn that in. And that doesn't change what any of those students see. And it doesn't change the original worksheet that the teacher made, but it makes a copy of the worksheet with my blanks filled in, whatever I choose to do to that worksheet. And then I turn it into the teacher. So the teacher will see, and of course, like I said, there's only one student, but they will see every student with this worksheet under their work and their own personal blanks filled into that worksheet, or anything edits they make to that document. But the original document that I gave to them is still untouched. It has the blanks. Does that make sense? So like I said, I keep calling it a worksheet because that's generally how teachers use it. It's you want to give them a copy of your template and you want them to fill it in, but it can be used in slightly other ways too. Maybe you have a slideshow that you made and you want your students to just go in and on the last slide add their comments or add their feedback, stuff like that they can do. You can get creative with it, but for the most part, it's used like a worksheet system. I'll take any questions we have so far on posting assignments, and then I'm going to do another recap of how to see their work and then talk about grading it. Any questions? All right, great. So then I want to talk about seeing students' work. So I know I've been talking about, students making their work and then pressing turn in, but if I unturn it in, or even before I turn it in, teachers can see any student work that's uploaded. So as a teacher right now, I unsubmitted that as a student. So it no longer says turned in, it just says assigned, but I can still see their worksheet with the changes they're making. So some tutors and some teachers, just to make things simpler, don't bother asking the students to press turn in. because they can see their work anyway, as long as they've, put it into Classroom. But the turn is sort of just like a symbol thing that, shows your teacher that you're done. And what it does is when a student turns in their work, it locks it. So only the teacher can edit it. Students can still see their work, but they can't change it anywhere once they've hit turn in without at least notifying you and saying that I'm unsubmitting it. So if you want that locking feature where you can see their work at the due date and they can't change it afterwards, then you want to have them press turn in. Otherwise, you can choose to not worry about it because you can still see their work here. It will just say assign. And so you can grade it, but you can't, there's no return option because they haven't even turned it into you in the first place. So how do you can't return something that you don't even own. But yeah, you can go ahead, you can see their work, you can still edit their work, you can add comments, and you can grade it. When you're grading assignments, it's pretty simple. Like I've been pointing out, when you're viewing a student's work by clicking on their name here, you can go ahead and type in any grade you want, and then you press return, and it sends them their grade. As a student, this will look like this. It just changed from assigned to graded as the status here. And here is where I can see the grade I've been given. There is an option. So once it's been graded or not graded and then returned, you can, students can make further changes and press resubmit. Of course, you don't have to accept that as a teacher. You don't have to, let them make even more changes and send it back to you and all this back and forth, but they can if they want to. So they can improve their work. Maybe they forgot the period, and then they can hit resubmit. And then as the teacher, you'll see here that it went from graded to, if I refresh, it went from graded. It'll still say graded, but now it says resubmitted here. So now I can go ahead and look at it again, say, oh, they included the period this time. So I can up their grade and send it back, and so on and so forth. And it'll say, okay, the previously 85, it's now a 95. You can send this, you can work back and forth with them turning in their work. You can give comments and feedback. They can turn it in again as many times as you like. You don't have to, but you can if you choose to. Does that make sense? I'll take any questions you guys have.
What is that feature where you stop at some point going back and forth with the document?
If you don't want to go back and forth, you don't have to, you want to tell your student that I'm not accepting changes. Don't try to resubmit it again. It's done, kind of thing. Most students aren't going to just do it. Obviously you'd want to tell them that, hey, make some changes and send it back. And if you don't tell them, then they won't. There's no way to actually turn it off though. The option will always be there for them.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll take any more questions. And one thing I wanted to mention real quick, I keep saying it, but I haven't actually showed you, is that when you're grading an assignment, you can give feedback in the form of these private comments. So I can type in whatever comments or feedback, and this doesn't just have to be feedback. This can be, why haven't you turned it in yet? Or whatever you like.
How about making corrections on their document? Can you do that?
Yes, you can absolutely go ahead and you can change anything. And by default, it makes it a Google, like a suggestion. Have you ever used like track changes in Word? It's similar. You can go ahead and say, hey, you should delete this and you should replace this with something else. This should say, hi. So maybe they incorrectly did it, and you can go ahead and make these corrections, and it'll show up like this, that you're choosing to replace this with this. It shows them the changes, but you can also just do it directly. You have all of the options. You can also add.
How did you bring up the comments box? How did you bring up the comments box?
So these comments just show up automatically when I make changes. And this private comment is also always here when I open students' work. So when I'm on an assignment and I click on student work and I open their work, on the right side here, it'll just say add private comment, and that'll give me the option to add a private comment to the students. Does that answer your question?
Demonstrate it because
Yes.
thank you.
So if I'm on my classroom and I go to the assignment and I want to view this student's work. So I click on the student's name. On the right here, automatically it says private comments, add private comment. I can click in here to type in whatever comment I like. And then I can press post and it sends it to them. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. As a student, here's how I see those comments. They'll show up right here under my work. It'll say 2 private comments. The teacher sent these 2, and I can go ahead and reply if I like. And of course, this is a little bit confusing because they both have the same name. Apologize. But now, as the teacher, I will see my comment and the student's reply. It just shows up like a thread of any sort of comments you've seen on the internet. Anything else? All right. Well, so that is all of the basic features of Google Classroom. And I'm going to now show you a quick example. So what people have been doing is creating, especially I volunteer primarily for the West Hudson area. So they've been setting this up, and I know others have been as well. And so they've asked me to make sure that when I do these presentations to go over it, they've set up these mock Google Classrooms with content already made for you. These are like template Google Classrooms. So basically the way this works is there's this Google Classroom here. It's called Pre-HSC Math West Hudson. So this is for math for HSC tutors. And you can see here that there's already all of this material for lessons 1 through 7. They did the same thing for citizenship, which is the example I'm going to use. Citizenship original. It's got, oh, this isn't right. Here it is, citizenship original. It has 8 lessons and 8 homework assignments to go along with those lessons already made. And so it's quite literally already made. So the slideshow is already here, and the homework assignment with the instructions and the links that the students need to complete the homework assignment is also already here. And so what tutors who are teaching these classes have the option of doing is to get a copy of this classroom. So here's what you do. When you're going to be invited to be a co-teacher of this classroom, okay? And then you're going to click on its name, and you click the 3 dots here, and you're going to press copy. Then you can name this how you would name, and you're setting up a traditional Google Classroom. So you can say this is our Wednesday's citizenship class, for example. It's going to take a couple minutes, but once that completes, what it's going to do is it's going to, all of those assignments and material that you saw that one teacher had posted over a time is now going to be duplicated for you in your own Google Classroom, but the students aren't going to be copied and the other teachers aren't going to be copied, just the content. So that way, now you can invite your students to this new copied class, and you can teach the class without having to create all of your posts manually. And this will make sense once I show you. Why did it just disappear? Okay, so you'll notice here that if I click on classwork, this looks like a standard Google Classroom that I just created. But if I click on classwork, I have all of these assignments here, but there is drafts because you don't want to overwhelm your students by automatically posting 20 assignments, but they're here as drafts. So when week 1 comes around and I'm done teaching lesson 1, or I'm about to teach lesson 1, I go to classwork, I go to lesson 1, I go to this draft material, I hit edit, and I can change it if I like to, but I don't have to because it's already filled out for me and I can just hit post. And then when I want to give the homework assignment, I scroll up to lesson 1 assignments. I hit edit, and then it's already got the title, all of the instructions, and the materials that I need to give to them filled out for me. I can change the points it's worth, and I can change the due date manually, obviously, because the due date wouldn't be the same as the first time this was posted. But I don't have to do all of this if I don't need to. I can press assign, and it's already there for me. And so because most of these classes are repetitive and taught basically the same 8 lessons in a cycle with the same assignments, this is set up for you, those of you teaching these classes without having to do any additional work.
So the documents are already sitting in your shared drive, in other words?
Yes, so when you create that copy of that classroom, it's going to create copies of all of these documents for your own Google Drive.
Okay, so even if you made a change, it's not going to affect the classroom, somebody else who's using the same classroom.
It will not. If you can, so for example, I'm going to go right here. This is one of the slideshows, and it's, see, I'm the owner. It just made a whole new copy of all of the documents within the classroom too. And so I can change this if I like, if I don't like this slideshow, if I want to update it, maybe something changed, I can absolutely go in and change it. I have complete control, but everything is here for me as a baseline.
Sid, can you review the steps on how you do the copy process?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So you're going to need to be invited as a co-teacher to one of these classrooms, to one of these original classrooms, or someone else will do this step for you. But essentially, you'll need to be, once you're invited as a co-teacher here, you go ahead to your classes and you click on the 3 dots next to the name. So this is the actual original classroom. I know I have a lot here, but this is the original template classroom, and you press this copy button, and then you give it a new name because this is going to be the name that your students see of your actual Google Classroom that you're creating. So I called it Wednesdays, but I'm just going to call this copy 2 for now. And then you just press copy, and it will copy all of the assignments and how they're set up, and also all of the Google Drive documents within the assignments will be copied to your Google Drive. So you have your own separate copy to work with if you want to make any changes. And you'll see that it's creating. It does take a minute because it's doing a lot of copy behind the scenes. And once, oh. Okay.
Sid, what do you mean that you have to be invited as a co-teacher?
So you're not going to be able to see this classroom on your page unless you're a member of this classroom. So the one process for giving tutors copies is they've been inviting them as a teacher. So classrooms can have multiple teachers. So they're inviting a tutor as a teacher to this original, and then they duplicate it, and then they leave this original, and then they just use their own duplicate. It's just a workaround we use to get them the original. But that's not the only way we're doing it. Sometimes what'll happen is someone like Heather, who's the coordinator at West Hudson, will make the copy herself. And then on the copy, she'll invite the tutor to be the teacher, the tutor of that class to be the actual co-teacher or the teacher of the Google Classroom. I didn't go over in detail, but yeah, classrooms can have multiple teachers. So I can now go ahead and invite my other account I've been using to be a teacher of this classroom instead of just a student. And so then they'll have the full access to all of the teacher features. Does that make sense? It's just the only way we can provide you guys with a copy of the template is to make you a teacher of the template first. because Google Classroom doesn't actually have a setup for templates. So anyway, once I've made this copy, you'll see here that in classwork, all of the material is here for you, but it says drafts, so you can post it whenever it is convenient for you to press post. Most people are recommending don't post it until it is that time, because you don't want to overwhelm the students with, weeks of content at once. Are there any questions with that? And any questions over anything I've gone over today? I know it's been a lot. This is like a 60 minutes, 0 to hero type thing, but.
Sid, if we wanted a review of this, would we, because I will definitely need more repetition of this in
Yeah.
order to get it. So how would I go about getting that? I mean, is it just that you will post the things and then I'll be able to go over this on my own?
I am currently working through making a more comprehensive document to go over all of this. However, I can also, I'm always available for appointments. That's what I've been doing outside of this conference, is for the most part helping tutors by appointment with any of their problems. So my email address is in the chat right now. And if you guys want any help, you can always email me.
Thank you.
Sid, I have a question, but I'm going to take you
Yes.
back to one of the first things you mentioned.
Absolutely.
The codes that go with signing in.
Yes.
There are 2 different ways that you can share. Well, I think 3 different ways that you can
Yes.
share with students.
Yes. I will go over that. So
Aside from giving them access, there is a code and then there's something else. What is the difference?
yes, there is no difference
Right, there's
between any
that
of these
class code.
methods. So yeah, there are 3 ways to invite a student. There's no difference between how you do them, but so you give them this class code. They have to, so I'm gonna copy it. You would email this to them or just show it to them on Zoom or something like that. And they would go to Google Classroom themselves as a student. And they would go and they would press plus and then join class and then type in that code. That will get them into the classroom. However, that is the most traditional way of inviting a student, but they've added these new ways that I recommend because they're just a little bit easier. So most of you guys already have your students' email addresses. So if you go to people up here and then hit invite students, there's just this plus icon, you can type in their email addresses and all that will do is it'll automatically send them an email with this link. And this link if they click on the link, it will automatically join the classroom for them without having to type in the code. It's like if you're joining a Zoom meeting, you can click on the link or you could type in the meeting ID and password manually. So the code is like typing it in manually and the link is like the automatic part. You can type in their email addresses to just automatically send them an email with the link. Google will send them an email with the link if you just type in their email addresses. And if you want to do it yourself, you just copy the link and you can go ahead and create an email and send it to them, whatever, with the link. Please click this to join our Google Classroom. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. Any other questions? All right, well, I will stick around to continue taking any questions that you guys have, but I won't keep you any longer. I believe Ms. Nicole has something to say before we wrap up.
I'm just going to put the evaluation link into the chat box right now. And if you have a moment, just fill that out for us. And I hope everybody has a great Saturday.
Thank you for listening, everyone. I'll be here for a little longer if you guys have questions. But other than that, feel free to leave.
Thank you.
Sid, when do you think you might have the things posted so we can go through this on our own?
By the end of the weekend
Okay,
on that, I have to learn how to use that Hoova app, but I believe that that's how you guys join this meeting, and you should be able to see
Yeah.
things I post there.
okay. Thank you.
This was great. Thank you, Sid.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, guys.
Sid, you
Yes.
mentioned,
Thank you.
okay. Sid,
Is the feedback
Uh,
form in there? I don't,
right.
the link to the feedback form, I don't see it.
Me neither.
Sorry, I'm putting
Uh.
it in right now. I just had to recopy it.
Okay, no worries.
No worry. Yeah.
Hey, Sid,
Yes.
do you know if there's, Sid, I have a pre-HSE English class. Do you know if there's any
Yes.
plans to upload, make any more materials available like you have here?
I believe there either already is one or there is a plan to make one. I'm only in the pre-HSC math and the citizenship because I'm mostly just providing an example. If you talk to your program coordinator, is that their title? Whoever runs your county, they will know exactly what is out there for you. And I know that even for ESL, there is some tutors are trying to work to put together classrooms like this. But the problem with ESL being that every tutor teaches it a little bit differently. There isn't as much of a unified curriculum. But yeah, for pre-HSC English, I know that there was talk of creating one. I don't know where they are, but if you reach out to the Literacy NJ people, they will be able to help you.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
Sid, you had mentioned that Google Classroom should be used in conjunction with Zoom as opposed to by itself. Why did you say that?
Because as I showed you today, you can post these things to your students, but it doesn't replace live teaching or education. Like it's not a classroom like video format. It's none of that. So if you're teaching a class to your students, this is great for giving them the assignments and giving them the materials, but you still want to actually teach over Zoom.
Google Classroom is live.
No, there's no video chat or anything like that.
It is. It has video chat and everything, just like Zoom. So you know
Well,
something different?
well, it does have those Google Meets, but the integration with the Google Meets and Google Classroom isn't completely working for students who don't have. Okay, so Google Classroom itself doesn't have a video chat. It does have the Google Meet, which I didn't talk about because of a few reasons. It does integrate with Google Meet, but you need like a corporate Google account for that Google Meet to work.
Yes.
And so most of us don't have those.
Okay.
And because I don't have one myself, I can't even show those as an example. So I just have left it out for now.
Understood.
Yeah, it is Google Meet that is has the is Google's answer to Zoom, and it does integrate in with Google Classroom, but it is a separate platform and it needs its own subscription and all that. So that's why we're stuck for now. You can use it if you want, but you will have to do a lot of setup yourself. So you would have to go to Google. Can you guys can still see my screen, right? Yeah. You would need to go to Google Meet and create the meeting. Let's just turn all this off right now. And this is sort of like a Zoom meeting, but smaller. And then you could send your students this link just like you do for Zoom. However, the reason people like Google Meet with Google Classroom is because, okay, this is going to be what is really nice, and I'm going to show you this on my actual, like my high school's Google Classroom, because it works there, is in Google Classroom, there's these Meet links that you click on, and this is automatically set up within Google Classroom, and only people from this classroom can join this link, and it's sort of all integrated and automatic, and that is really nice. But that part needs the corporate account or like the professional school account. And the problem with this is, even if you have it, all your students have to have it too for this to work. So it's such a pain that right now we aren't able to do it. You can, if you prefer Google Meet to Zoom, you can use that instead, but you would still have to be sending all the links manually and all that. So at this point, people are just preferring Zoom because it's generally a nicer platform if you're going to have to do the work yourself anyway.
Okay.
Sid, so you just said that everyone in the classroom must have the business account to use the Google Meets, not just the host for everyone to access, correct?
So you can use Google Meets on your own with personal accounts. However,
Right.
to integrate it into Google Classroom, yes, everyone needs to be in the same business or school domain for those magic links to work.
Got it. Thank you.
Mhm.
This has been a great class. So informative. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sid, it has been very informative, much appreciated.
Yeah, you know what was good where you demonstrated that I could see both what the teacher saw and the student. The split screen.
Yes, I found that to be helpful.
It is.
Some people like it when I do it like side by side, and some people like it when I switch back and forth. So I kind of just go with the
Yeah.
flow. But yeah, no. Seeing the students is helpful. And when I
Yeah,
was
seeing-
learning this, it was very helpful.
Yeah, seeing it from both angles, you know, to see what when you post something, to see what they're going to see.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you very much.
Of course, thank you.
Sid, when you want to start an account with Google Classroom,